Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to talk about a topic that is often overlooked, misunderstood, or minimized: men's mental health. When we think of mental health, the image that typically comes to mind is one of vulnerability, emotion, and openness. For many men, however, these traits have been taught to be signs of weakness, creating a barrier to truly understanding and addressing their mental well-being. For far too long, society has pressured men into embodying a version of masculinity that is stoic, unyielding, and devoid of emotion. Yet, mental health doesn't know gender. Struggling with mental health challenges doesn't make you less of a person or any less capable. It makes you human. Today, I want to explore the importance of vulnerability and courage in addressing mental health for men. Let's talk about what happens when men are allowed to embrace their full emotional spectrum, to admit that they're struggling, and to seek the support they need to heal. For generations, society has placed a narrow and rigid framework around what it means to be a man. From a young age, boys are often taught that they must be tough, resilient, and unemotional. The message is clear: real men don't cry, they don't show vulnerability, and they must always be in control of their feelings. These traditional ideas of masculinity have been ingrained in many cultures and have had a profound impact on men's mental health. However, this narrow definition of masculinity doesn't account for the full range of human experiences and emotions that every individual, regardless of gender, can feel. Men, like everyone else, experience sadness, anger, joy, fear, anxiety, and a host of other emotions that are not only valid but essential to living a full life. When men are taught to suppress or ignore these emotions, they not only risk their mental well-being, but also their relationships, their work, and their overall quality of life. The problem lies in the belief that emotional expression is a weakness. When men are told from childhood that they must man up or suck it up, they internalize this notion, often leading them to dismiss their emotional needs. They may hide feelings of sadness, stress, or anxiety behind a facade or indifference. This suppression can result in feelings of isolation and frustration as men struggle to understand and articulate what they are truly experiencing. Without an outlet for these emotions, they can manifest in harmful ways, such as through anger, addiction, or even physical health problems. But redefining masculinity doesn't mean rejecting the positive aspects of strength, resilience, or leadership. It means expanding the idea of strength to include emotional intelligence, empathy, and the ability to be open and vulnerable with oneself and others. True masculinity can be about having the courage to acknowledge pain and seek help when needed. It's about knowing that showing emotion is not a flaw, but a sign of being human. When men are encouraged to express themselves freely, it can lead to healthier relationships, better mental health, and an overall sense of well-being. Shifting these cultural norms won't happen overnight, but it begins with individuals being willing to question long-standing beliefs and make space for a more inclusive definition of manhood. It means creating environments where men feel supported in expressing their feelings and where emotional vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness. In doing so, we can break down the barriers that have held men back for so long and help them lead lives that are not only successful but emotionally fulfilling as well. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. In many societies, it's seen as a weakness, a flaw that opens the door for harm, judgment, or failure. Men, in particular, frequently taught that vulnerability is something to be avoided. The idea is that to be truly strong, men must remain stoic and unaffected, keeping their emotions tightly controlled. This cultural expectation discourages men from expressing feelings like sadness, fear, or uncertainty, leaving them to grapple with these emotions in isolation. But what if we reframe vulnerability not as a sign of weakness, but as an essential component of personal strength? In reality, vulnerability is at the heart of connection, healing, and growth. It takes far more courage to acknowledge one's struggles and reach out for help than it does to maintain a facade of invulnerability. When men allow themselves to be vulnerable, they open the door to deeper, more authentic relationships, whether with family, friends, or romantic partners. Vulnerability fosters empathy and understanding, creating space for others to feel safe in expressing their own emotions. Moreover, when men embrace vulnerability, they provide themselves with the opportunity to process and understand their emotions in a healthy way. By confronting their feelings rather than burying them, men can break the cycle of emotional suppression that often leads to stress, anxiety, or depression. In this way, vulnerability becomes a tool for mental health rather than a liability. Vulnerability is not about weakness, it's about acknowledging the human experience in all its complexity. It's about allowing ourselves to be seen in our entirety, the parts of us that are strong and the parts that are broken. True strength comes not from denying our emotions, but from the willingness to face them, to embrace them, and to take action to move through them. Men who embrace vulnerability can learn to ask for help, communicate more openly, and ultimately create lives that are more fulfilling and authentic. The power of vulnerability lies in its ability to foster growth and connection, and this is especially true for men. When vulnerability is embraced, it creates space for emotional healing and deeper relationships. It reminds us all that being human means experiencing a broad range of emotions, and there is strength in acknowledging and sharing those emotions with others. Vulnerability is not a flaw, it is the gateway to a richer, more connected life. For many men, the silence surrounding mental health is deafening. Society often reinforces the idea that men should keep their struggles to themselves, either because of shame or because they fear being seen as weak. This silence is a double-edged sword. Not only does it prevent men from addressing their mental health needs, but it also perpetuates harmful stereotypes that mental health issues are something to be hidden or ignored. When men are unable to speak openly about their challenges, they risk feeling isolated, misunderstood, and alienated. The absence of conversation about mental health creates a dangerous environment in which men are expected to deal with their emotions on their own. This expectation can exacerbate mental health issues like anxiety, depression, and stress, leading to an unhealthy buildup of emotions that have nowhere to go. The longer men stay silent, the more difficult it becomes to break free from the weight of their internal struggles. Left unaddressed, these issues can seep into other areas of life, such as relationships, work, and even physical health. When we create space for men to talk about their mental health, we break down the harmful stigma that keeps them silent. It's essential that men feel that their experiences, whether related to anxiety, depression, or other challenges, are valid and worthy of attention. The act of speaking out, of sharing their pain or fear, can be the first step toward healing. Open conversations about mental health also help men realize that they are not alone. When they hear others sharing similar struggles, they may feel a sense of relief and connection, knowing that they are part of a larger, supportive community. It's important to remember that mental health challenges are not a sign of failure, but a natural part of the human experience. By speaking up, men can find the resources, support, and encouragement they need to take positive steps toward better mental health. Additionally, when men begin to speak openly about their mental health, they set an example for future generations. Young boys and teenagers often model what they see in adults. If they see that it's okay to talk about mental health, that it's acceptable to be vulnerable and ask for help, they will be more likely to carry that lesson into adulthood. Breaking the silence about mental health can lead to a profound cultural shift where emotional expression is seen as a normal and necessary part of life, regardless of gender. Ultimately, the silence surrounding men's mental health is one of the biggest barriers to progress. By encouraging men to speak openly, we not only create a safer environment for them to express their emotions, but we also pave the way for a broader societal understanding of mental health that benefits everyone. The more men speak up, the more we can destigmatize mental health issues and make it clear that seeking help is a brave and important step toward healing. For many men, emotional awareness is not something that comes naturally, nor is it something that society encourages them to develop. From an early age, many are conditioned to push aside their emotions, to focus instead on achieving, competing, and toughing it out. This lack of emotional education means that when men encounter difficult feelings, they often don't know how to process them or even how to identify what they are truly experiencing. Men may feel frustrated, sad, or anxious, but without the vocabulary or understanding to label these emotions, they may dismiss them as unimportant or even confusing. This emotional disconnect can have serious consequences for their mental health. Emotions are an integral part of human life. They provide valuable insights into how we are feeling and what we might need to address in our lives. However, if men are taught to ignore or hide their emotions, they may miss the opportunity to recognize the root causes of their stress, anxiety, or sadness. For instance, they may interpret emotional discomfort as weakness or failure rather than as a sign that they need to care for themselves, seek help, or make changes in their lives. This misinterpretation can lead to negative coping strategies such as excessive drinking, anger, or withdrawal, which only serve to compound the underlying issues. Emotional awareness allows men to become more in tune with themselves and their needs. It helps them understand what they're going through and provides the ability to articulate those feelings, whether to a therapist, a loved one, or even in a personal journal. Being aware of one's emotions is not about wallowing in them or being overwhelmed by them, but about gaining clarity on how they influence thoughts, actions, and relationships. For men, this process of self-awareness can be the first step toward healthier emotional expression and better mental well-being. Learning to identify and express emotions is also a key component of building stronger relationships. When men understand their own feelings, they can communicate more openly and effectively with those around them. For instance, if a man is feeling stressed at work but doesn't know how to recognize or express that stress, he might inadvertently lash out at his partner or retreat into isolation. On the other hand, if he has developed emotional awareness, he can share his concerns with his partner in a way that fosters understanding and support. This ability to communicate emotions leads to more meaningful connections and prevents misunderstandings that might otherwise harm relationships. By promoting emotional awareness, we give men the tools to navigate life's challenges more effectively. It empowers them to embrace their full emotional range, not just the traditionally acceptable emotions like anger or pride, but also vulnerability, fear, sadness, and joy. Recognizing and accepting emotions without judgment leads to healthier mental well-being and a more balanced approach to life's ups and downs. Emotional awareness doesn't mean that men have to become overly emotional or weak. Rather, it provides them with the means to be more present, authentic, and emotionally healthy. Many men face an overwhelming sense of pressure to perform in various aspects of their lives at work, in their personal relationships, and in their roles as providers or leaders. From an early age, they are often taught that success is defined by external achievements, financial stability, career advancement, or the ability to protect and provide for others. These societal expectations, while seemingly positive in their emphasis on hard work and responsibility, can create an enormous burden. The pressure to constantly succeed can lead to stress, anxiety, and even burnout, as men feel that they must meet these high standards at all costs. The weight of these expectations becomes even more challenging when they are tied to one's sense of identity. For many men, their self-worth is directly linked to their ability to succeed or measure up in a tangible way. If they fail to meet these standards, whether that means not securing a promotion at work, struggling financially, or not fulfilling traditional roles in a relationship, they can feel like they are not enough, that they have fallen short of the mark. This sense of inadequacy can erode self-esteem, leading to feelings of depression, frustration, or hopelessness. The pressure to perform is compounded by the cultural stigma surrounding failure. In many societies, failure is seen as something to be hidden or avoided, and men may fear judgment or ridicule if they admit that they're struggling. As a result, they may avoid talking about their difficulties, both because they don't want to appear weak and because they feel that acknowledging failure would tarnish their reputation or undermine their sense of masculinity. This reluctance to discuss setbacks creates an environment in which men feel trapped, unable to express vulnerability or seek help for fear of being perceived as inadequate. This constant drive to perform, to always be on, can take a toll on mental health. Men who are caught in this cycle may experience chronic stress, anxiety, and even depression as they feel they are never quite measuring up to their own or society's expectations. They may neglect their own emotional needs, focusing instead on external achievements as a way to cope with the inner turmoil. Over time, this emotional neglect can manifest in physical symptoms such as fatigue, insomnia, or headaches, further compounding the stress they already feel. To address this, it's crucial to reframe the notion of success and performance. Men should be encouraged to redefine their sense of self-worth, moving away from external markers of achievement and focusing on intrinsic values like personal growth, emotional health, and the ability to connect with others. Success should not be limited to tangible accomplishments, but should also include emotional well-being, resilience, and the capacity to ask for help when needed. Creating space for men to be more than just their external achievements allows them to embrace a fuller, healthier version of themselves, one that acknowledges both their strengths and their struggles. Moreover, by reducing the stigma around failure and vulnerability, we can help men feel more comfortable expressing their emotions and seeking support. The idea that failure is a natural and inevitable part of life, rather than something to be feared or hidden, can help alleviate the immense pressure that men often face. When men are allowed to acknowledge their struggles without judgment, they can develop healthier ways to cope with the challenges they encounter, ultimately leading to better mental health and a more balanced, fulfilling life. Men's mental health is deeply influenced by the relationships they cultivate in their lives. One of the most important aspects of mental well-being is the ability to connect with others, whether that be friends, family, or partners. Yet many men are conditioned to believe that they must handle everything on their own, leading them to avoid seeking help or sharing their vulnerabilities with those closest to them. This isolation can be incredibly damaging as it prevents them from accessing the emotional support and understanding that is essential for mental health. Relationships are a powerful resource in coping with stress, managing emotions, and overcoming challenges, but only when men feel safe enough to open up and seek the support they need. The pressure to maintain a stoic, independent persona can create barriers to intimacy in relationships. When men hold back their emotions or struggle in silence, they may distance themselves from those they care about. This lack of emotional openness can lead to feelings of loneliness, even when surrounded by others. It becomes difficult for loved ones to understand the challenges men are facing if they are not given the opportunity to share their struggles. This emotional distance can result in misunderstandings and strain in relationships, as both parties may feel disconnected from one another. In healthy, supportive relationships, emotional connection is crucial. When men feel safe enough to express their feelings and ask for support, they are met with empathy, understanding, and reassurance. Whether it's talking to a partner about stress at work, confiding in a friend about anxiety, or seeking guidance from a family member during a tough time, these connections provide a sense of belonging and reassurance. The simple act of sharing feelings and experiences can alleviate emotional burdens and remind men that they are not alone in their struggles. Furthermore, strong, supportive relationships also help men develop emotional intelligence. When men communicate openly about their needs and emotions, it encourages their loved ones to do the same. This mutual exchange creates a culture of openness and understanding that benefits everyone involved. It helps men build a deeper connection with themselves and others, fostering empathy and creating a foundation of trust and support. Over time, these relationships become invaluable resources for emotional well-being, providing both a sense of comfort during difficult times and a sense of joy and fulfillment in everyday moments. The fear of vulnerability can prevent many men from seeking out or nurturing meaningful relationships. But the truth is, the act of being vulnerable, of sharing struggles and emotions, is what fosters deep, lasting connections. Relationships thrive on trust and openness, And the more men allow themselves to be vulnerable, the more they can experience the true benefits of connection. When men allow themselves to rely on others and share their emotional world, they open the door to a richer, more supportive experience of life where they can find the strength to face challenges and the compassion to heal. Relationships, when nurtured and valued, provide a lifeline for men navigating mental health struggles. By seeking and offering support, men can build the resilience needed to weather life's difficulties. No one should have to go through their struggles alone. And with the right relationships in place, men can feel empowered to confront their challenges and emerge stronger. Ultimately, the support and connection found in relationships are some of the most powerful tools for maintaining mental well-being and emotional health. In many cultures, there is a pervasive belief that asking for help is a sign of weakness, particularly for men. From childhood, they are often taught to be strong, to figure it out on their own, and to avoid relying on others. These messages, though sometimes well-intentioned, create a toxic narrative that asking for help is somehow beneath them, a failure in their ability to handle life's challenges. This narrative can prevent men from seeking the support they need, even when they are struggling emotionally or mentally. The reality is that asking for help is one of the bravest and most powerful things a person can do. It takes immense courage to acknowledge that you can't do everything on your own, especially when society has conditioned you to believe that strength lies in self-sufficiency. When men allow themselves to ask for help, they open the door to healing, support, and growth. The act of reaching out to a therapist, a friend, or a family member shows that they are willing to face their difficulties head-on and work through them rather than avoiding or suppressing them. Seeking help does not diminish a man's strength. In fact, it enhances it. It takes strength to confront emotional struggles and to be vulnerable enough to admit that they cannot manage everything alone. It also takes strength to trust others with your emotional well-being, knowing that they may offer guidance, comfort, or simply a listening ear. This is not weakness, it's emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Understanding when you need support is a sign of maturity, self-respect, and the ability to prioritize your mental health. Unfortunately, the stigma around seeking help often goes beyond just asking for emotional support. It can also extend to professional help, such as therapy or counseling. Many men may avoid seeking therapy because they fear being judged, labeled, or seen as weak or crazy. This fear can keep them stuck in their struggles, trapped in silence, and isolated from the resources that could genuinely help. However, therapy is not a sign of failure, it's a tool for healing. It provides a space for men to explore their feelings, understand their emotions, and develop strategies for managing stress, anxiety, and other challenges. The sooner a man seeks help, the sooner he can begin the journey toward healing and mental well-being. By normalizing the act of asking for help, we can shift the narrative around masculinity and mental health. Men need to understand that seeking help is not only okay, but necessary. It's not about admitting weakness. It's about recognizing that every person has limits, and no one should have to bear their emotional burdens alone. Creating a culture where asking for help is seen as a strength rather than a flaw can make a tremendous difference in the way men approach their mental health and emotional well-being. Ultimately, seeking help is not just about the act itself. It's about changing the perception that asking for assistance makes someone less capable or less of a man. It's about fostering an environment where emotional health is valued and where asking for help is seen as a positive, proactive step in maintaining one's well-being. When men embrace the idea that they don't have to go through life's challenges alone, they open themselves up to greater support, deeper connections, and better mental health. Throughout history, many men have been taught that their worth is tied to their ability to provide, protect, and succeed in traditionally masculine roles. These ideals have shaped how men view themselves and their place in the world. While these traits such as ambition, responsibility, and leadership can be incredibly valuable, they can also lead to an unhealthy sense of self-worth based solely on external achievements. The danger lies in the belief that a man is only valuable if he is fulfilling these roles perfectly, which can create immense pressure and internal conflict. The problem arises when a man's self-esteem becomes entirely reliant on his external accomplishments, such as his career, financial status, or ability to meet societal expectations. This mindset places men in a constant cycle of striving for more, often at the expense of their emotional well-being. When success becomes the only measure of worth, any setbacks, failures, or moments of vulnerability can feel like personal failures, leading to feelings of shame, guilt, and inadequacy. If a man does not meet the standards set by society, or if he struggles to fulfill these roles, it can lead to a crisis of identity, as he may feel as though he has no value outside of what he accomplishes. This narrow definition of success can also contribute to unhealthy perfectionism, where men feel that they must always perform at their best and never show weakness. The pressure to maintain this image of perfection can lead to burnout, stress, and a lack of fulfillment as they push themselves beyond their limits. It also discourages men from embracing their full humanity, the parts of them that experience doubt, insecurity, and imperfection. These aspects of being human are often overlooked in the pursuit of external success, but they are just as essential to a healthy, balanced life. Shifting the focus from external achievement to internal worth can be incredibly freeing. When men begin to define their value not by what they do or achieve, but by who they are as individuals, it allows them to experience life with more balance and fulfillment. Personal growth, emotional intelligence, kindness, and the ability to connect with others are all valuable aspects of a person that cannot be measured by external markers of success. By recognizing their worth in these areas, men can experience greater self-compassion and peace, as they no longer feel the need to constantly prove their value to the world. Additionally, this shift allows men to embrace failure and imperfection as part of their journey. Failure is not a reflection of worth, but rather an opportunity for growth and learning. When men can accept that they are valuable regardless of their successes or setbacks, they open themselves up to a more authentic and fulfilling life. They no longer need to hide their struggles or accomplishments behind a mask of perfection, but can instead approach life with a greater sense of freedom and self-acceptance. By changing the way men view their self-worth, we can reduce the pressure that comes with trying to live up to unrealistic expectations. This shift not only benefits mental health, but also allows men to lead more connected and meaningful lives. When men are able to view themselves as valuable for who they are, not just what they do, they can cultivate a healthier sense of self and embrace their whole selves, imperfections and all. In conclusion, men's mental health is an issue that deserves our attention, compassion, and understanding. It is time to dismantle the harmful societal norms that limit emotional expression, discourage vulnerability, and place undue pressure on men to conform to narrow definitions of strength and success. Men are not defined by their achievements alone, but by their ability to be honest with themselves, to seek help when needed, and to nurture the relationships that support them. By changing the narrative around masculinity and mental health, we can create a world where men feel empowered to embrace their emotions, prioritize their well-being, and lead fulfilling lives. Let us continue to challenge the stigma, foster open conversations, and provide the support necessary to ensure that every man can live a life of authenticity, resilience, and emotional health.